Night shift, the concluding part. By the time Laura clocked in for her next night shift, the story of Room 319 had spread like wildfire. A few nurses refused to work that end of the hall, citing equipment failures or bad vibes. Even the janitorial crews started skipping their rounds there after dark. But Laura, who had spent the last 2 nights with that printed message looping in her head, couldn't stay away. She told herself it was about science, about getting answers. But deep down, she knew it was more than that. Something in that room had reached out. We're still here. Help. And that last one, not one, it felt unfinished. As if whoever or whatever had spoken wasn't done yet. The night began quietly. Routine vital checks. 4 drips refilled. Patients tucked beneath warm blankets. Malik returned with new cameras, infrared this time, and mounted one right above 319's door. Dana reviewed maintenance logs twice. Everything was normal. Until 2:57 a.m. The temperature dropped again, sharper than before, like the hallway had been plunged into the heart of winter. Frost began forming on the metal frame of 319's door. The tamper strip that had once sealed it now hung half-peeled, even though no one had gone near it since the night before. Check the feed, Laura said. Malik switched the monitor from hallway view to infrared. A pale outline, too cold to be human, moved inside the sealed room. Impossible, Dana whispered. There's nobody in there. Laura's pager buzzed. The same words again, 319. Please. She stepped closer. The air felt heavy, pressing against her skin like water. Malik muttered a prayer under his breath. Dana's hand hovered over the radio. The door creaked open. No one touched it. No one moved. It simply opened, slow, deliberate, and steady, as if someone on the other side had decided to welcome them in. Laura's instincts screamed, "Don't cross that line," but something deeper urged her forward. She switched on her flashlight and stepped into 319. The bed was empty. The monitor was off. But the paper tape from the printer was still on the floor. And now, new words were etched into it, not printed, but scratched into the thin strip like fingernail marks. Find us. Find who? Laura whispered, barely aware she'd spoken. The room answered with a sound she would never forget, a heartbeat. Not the mechanical beep of a monitor this time, but a real, rhythmic thump coming from beneath the floorboards. Thud, 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 thud. Back out! Dana shouted, pulling her by the arm. But Laura couldn't move. The sound was everywhere now, under the floor, behind the walls, inside her chest. Then the hallway lights exploded. Not shattered, exploded, flooding the corridor with a blinding white that burned out every camera and silenced every monitor. The power surged and died, plunging the ward into darkness. Only one thing remained, the rhythmic thumping, louder now, closer. Malik fumbled for his flashlight. Its beam cut through the dark, and caught a figure standing at the far end of the hallway. It was a man in an old-fashioned hospital gown, pale and translucent. His eyes were closed, but his chest moved, rising and falling with the same heartbeat pulsing through the walls. And beside him, barely waist-high, stood the figure of a child. They weren't moving toward them. They weren't even looking at them. They just stood, side by side, as if waiting. Then the child turned its head. The temperature plummeted. Every door on the floor slammed shut. And Laura heard a whisper that seemed to come from inside her bones. Not 1:47. The figures vanished. The lights snapped back on. And just like that, everything was normal again, except for the printed paper still lying on the floor, the heartbeats still echoing faintly in the pipes, and the number 47 now burned into the monitor screen. Dana backed away first. We're leaving this floor. Now. Laura didn't move. She stared at that number, certain now that this was no glitch. No random haunting. It was a message, a clue to something buried deeper than anyone had realized. And somewhere inside her, fear began to shift into determination. She was going to find out what happened in room 319. Because not one wasn't just a ghostly phrase. It was a warning. And 47 was just the beginning. The number 47 wouldn't leave Laura's mind. It followed her home after every shift, blinking in her dreams like a neon sign behind her eyelids. She saw it on bus stop posters, in grocery receipts, even in the rhythm of the crosswalk lights. It wasn't just a message, it was a demand. And so, a week after the incident in room 319, Laura did something she had never done before. She broke the rules. It started in the hospital's archives, a place so rarely visited that dust lay thick on the cabinets and the fluorescent bulbs hummed louder than the ventilation system. Malik came with her, despite his insistence that this is a bad idea. And Dana reluctantly followed, carrying 2 cups of burnt coffee and a flashlight. They searched for hours, pulling old patient logs, incident reports, and handwritten notes from decades past. It was nearly 4 a.m. when Laura found it, a thick binder dated March 1967, labeled Ward C, Terminated Cases. Most of the records were typed. But buried near the back was a page written by hand, in fading blue ink. Incident Report Number 47, Mass Casualty, March 19, 1967. Laura's pulse quickened. The report described a boiler malfunction that led to a fire on the 3rd floor, the same floor where room 319 now stood. 47 patients died that night, most from smoke inhalation. The youngest was a 6-year-old girl named Lydia Hartman. The last to die was a man named William Carter, who refused to leave until staff rescued the others. Neither body was ever recovered. At the bottom of the page, someone had written a single sentence in shaky handwriting. They never left. The 3 of them stared at the words in silence. That's what it means, Malik whispered. 47. They're still here. Laura felt the truth settle heavy in her chest. The voices, the heartbeat, the figures, they weren't random. They were trapped. And for reasons she couldn't explain, room 319 was their anchor. That night she went back. No cameras. No backup. No permission. Just Laura, a key she wasn't supposed to have, and a voice inside her that whispered, "You have to know." The hallway was colder than she remembered. Frost clung to the baseboards like a living thing, and the hum of the lights was softer here, almost reverent. The door to 319 opened with a soft click. Inside, the air was still. Too still. The bed was stripped, the monitor unplugged. But in the far corner, something new waited for her, a small wooden box, carved with the number 47. Laura's breath caught. She knelt and opened it. Inside were 47 patient ID tags, each tarnished and bent with age. All except one, a single tag, polished clean, with the name Lydia Hartman etched into its surface. The heartbeat started again. It was louder this time, not just beneath the floor but in the walls, in the ceiling, in the air itself. And as Laura stood, the room changed. The sterile hospital space dissolved into something older, charred walls, peeling paint, the faint smell of smoke and ash. Shadows formed shapes. Shapes became people. Dozens of translucent figures stood in the room now, faces blurred but eyes fixed on her. Lydia stepped forward. The same child from the hallway. Her small hand reached toward Laura, but her voice, when it came, was not a child's. It was layered, echoing with dozens of tones. Not forgotten. Laura's knees weakened. What do you want? She whispered. The room answered with the faint hiss of oxygen lines and the slow, rising sound of a chorus, heartbeat after heartbeat, merging into one steady rhythm. Tell them. The walls pulsed with the words. Tell them. And then, as quickly as it came, the room was empty. The frost was gone. The smell of ash vanished. The heartbeat faded into silence. Only the box remained, heavy in Laura's hands. In the weeks that followed, Laura tried to do what they asked. She spoke to the hospital board, shared the records she'd found, even suggested a memorial for the 47 who had died in the 1967 fire. But the board dismissed it. Old tragedies, they said. No reason to stir them up now. Still, room 319 was sealed again. This time with reinforced doors and a new lock. But that didn't stop the stories. New staff whispered about footsteps in the hallway. Thermostats still dipped without warning. And every so often, just before 3:19 a.m., monitors in empty rooms blinked to life. 47 beats, then silence. Laura eventually left the hospital. She moved 2 states away, took a job in a smaller clinic, and tried to build a life that didn't involve whispers in empty corridors. But the night shift never truly left her. Sometimes, in the middle of her rounds, she still feels a chill brush past her shoulder. Sometimes the monitors still pulse for no reason. And once, just once, a child's voice echoed down the hall of a hospital she had never worked in before. Not forgotten. Summit Medical Center has never acknowledged the 1967 fire publicly. No memorial plaque exists. The official number of casualties is still listed as 45, not 47. But if you visit the 3rd floor after dark, the elevator will skip over room 319. And if you stand outside its sealed door at exactly 3:19 a.m., you might hear a faint heartbeat inside, one that doesn't belong to the living. Some stories don't end when the lights come on. They wait. And on the night shift, they walk. The end.